candle burned softly beside the narrow window, its golden flame moving gently with the slow breath of the night. Outside, the ancient stone street rested under pale mist, and distant bells faded into silence. Inside the small chamber, a woman sat quietly on a wooden chair. Her hands rested loosely in her lap. Her breathing was slow and steady, like the peaceful rhythm of the sleeping city. Shadows moved softly along the walls, shaped by the dancing light of the candle. Her name was Eleanor. Every evening at the same hour, Eleanor lit this candle and waited, not because someone promised to arrive tonight, not because footsteps would surely echo on the stairs, but because waiting had become part of her heart, gentle and patient, like a quiet prayer. The room was simple and warm. A small table held a cup of untouched tea, slowly releasing thin ribbons of steam. A folded shawl rested on the back of the chair. Along the wall stood a narrow shelf filled with old books and tied letters, yellowed by time and careful handling. Each object carried a memory. Each memory carried a soft emotion. Years ago, this chamber had not been so silent. Soft laughter once floated gently through the air. Calm footsteps crossed the floor. A warm voice spoke stories of distant roads and quiet dreams beneath foreign skies. Outside, the wind whispered along the empty street. A single lantern flickered near the corner, painting slow patterns of light across the stones. The city seemed to breathe in harmony with her quiet thoughts. She leaned slightly toward the window, resting her fingertips against the cool glass. The night felt wide and endless, yet peaceful. Somewhere beyond the mist and silent rooftops, life continued softly. Time moved slowly here, very slowly. Eleanor welcomed the slow passing of time. In stillness, she found clarity. In silence, she found calm. The world no longer rushed her heart. It allowed her to breathe fully and deeply. She reached for one of the tied letters on the shelf, but stopped midway. Instead, she smiled faintly and returned her hand to her lap. Some memories did not need to be touched to be felt. They lived naturally inside her. The flame trembled gently, stretching shadows across the ceiling like drifting clouds. The warmth of the candle wrapped the room in quiet comfort. Eleanor allowed her eyes to soften, listening to the delicate silence that filled every corner. Her thoughts slowly drifted backward, back to the season when everything quietly began. Spring had quietly returned to the city. The streets shimmered with soft sunlight and the faint scent of blooming flowers. Eleanor remembered the day Thomas had arrived, carrying the smell of travel and rain, and a quiet hope in his eyes. Their first encounter had been simple, almost ordinary, yet unforgettable. Eleanor had dropped a bundle of letters in the narrow corridor of the chapel library, the papers scattered like startled birds across the stone floor. Thomas had knelt to gather them, his hands brushing against hers. The moment lingered just a little too long to be accidental. Their eyes met, and something unspoken sparked between them, a gentle, quiet recognition. From that day on, they began meeting in small, unhurried ways. Quiet walks along the riverbank at dusk, sharing stories in the corner of the library, exchanging smiles that carried 1,000 words. The city around them continued its noise, but in those moments it disappeared. Thomas spoke softly of distant lands, of cities and oceans he longed to see. Eleanor spoke of stories she had written, tales meant to comfort lonely hearts, tales she sometimes feared no one would read. Their words flowed gently, slowly weaving a connection neither fully understood yet. Love grew, not with loud declarations, but in small acts of patience, care, and quiet attention. One evening, under the warm glow of the setting sun, they walked along the cobbled streets, leaves rustling beneath their feet. Eleanor noticed how his eyes lingered on small details, the way the light fell on the buildings, the subtle movements of people passing by, the softness in her own hands as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. It was in these tiny moments that trust and tenderness began to root themselves in her heart. She didn't rush, and he did not push. Time moved deliberately, each second a quiet testament to their growing bond. They began leaving small notes for one another in books at the library, words that were simple, yet carried entire worlds within them. Sometimes Eleanor would read his note and feel warmth spread slowly through her chest, like the sun creeping across the stone walls of her chamber. Rainy days became their favorite. Sitting by the window with the soft sound of raindrops tapping against glass, they spoke of dreams too delicate for the outside world. Their laughter was soft, their silences comfortable, and Eleanor felt a sense of belonging she had never known before. Even when they parted for the night, a quiet understanding lingered. She would return to her chamber, light her candle, and feel the memory of his voice as if it were a gentle presence in the room. It was not the passion of fire, but the steady warmth of a flame that never wavered. Eleanor realized love could be patient, enduring, and calm, like the soft pulse of night around her. In these evenings, she learned to notice the beauty in small things, a flicker of light, a whispered word, the simple rhythm of a heartbeat in silence. Every glance from Thomas, every soft word, every gentle smile became a treasure she held close. The city outside continued its quiet march through days and nights. Eleanor knew the world would not wait for them, but within these moments she had found something timeless, a feeling that would grow slowly, steadily, without haste, without noise, until it filled every shadow of her heart. She allowed herself to sink fully into these moments, letting memory and hope blend seamlessly into the rhythm of her nights. For love, she realized, was not always about presence. Sometimes it was about feeling someone quietly, across. In these evenings, she learned to notice the beauty in small things, a flicker of light, a whispered word, the simple rhythm of a heartbeat in silence. Every glance from Thomas, every soft word, every gentle smile became a treasure she held close. The seasons continued their quiet rhythm. Eleanor and Thomas's days together became more precious, not longer. His travels called him to distant towns, and she would watch him leave from the city gates, the echo of his footsteps fading into the distance. Each parting was gentle, never dramatic, yet left a hollow space that no words could fill. She returned to her chamber, lighting the same candle each evening, allowing the glow to comfort her. She would trace the letters they left for one another, reading them slowly, savoring every word. The scent of paper and ink seemed to carry a memory of his hands, his voice, the warmth of his presence. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and still Eleanor waited, patiently, quietly, allowing hope too. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and still Eleanor waited, patiently, quietly, allowing hope to live inside her like a steady heartbeat. Sometimes the nights were long and lonely. The wind outside would whistle against the windows, the streets empty and dark. Yet she found solace in the rhythm of small things, the flicker of the candle, the soft tick of the clock, the memory of his laughter. She learned that waiting was not pain. Waiting was trust, patience, and the quiet faith that some things, if true, couldn't be taken away by time or distance. Thomas, too, carried memories of their time together. Letters reached her hand filled with dreams, reflections, and moments he could not share in person. Each note a small gift, a year. One evening, after a particularly long winter, Eleanor sat by her window, candle burning softly beside her. She felt a subtle shift in the air, a sense of something returning. The streets below were quiet, but her heart whispered that something had changed. And then a familiar shadow appeared at the gate, a gentle step, slow and deliberate, approaching the door. Her chest lifted with anticipation, a smile forming naturally as her fingers traced the flame of the candle. Thomas had returned, not with fanfare, not with urgency, but with the steady calm of someone who had walked far and found the path back home. Eleanor stood, hands trembling slightly, eyes wide with quiet joy. He stepped forward, each step measured, each glance soft, carrying the weight of months apart and the warmth of enduring love. No words were needed. They embraced slowly, gently, as if confirming a truth both already knew. The city around them disappeared once more, leaving only the candle, the room, and the steady rhythm of two hearts reconnecting. The letters, the nights of waiting, the quiet patience, all of it had led to this simple, perfect moment. Love, Eleanor realized, had never left. It had merely waited alongside her, softly, faithfully, like the pulse of the night itself. The candle flickered, shadows danced along the walls, and Eleanor allowed herself to simply breathe. Every pause, every moment, every quiet second had brought her here, and now she could rest, content in the calm certainty of love returned. Outside, the night continued its silent rhythm, but inside the chamber, warmth and peace had found their home. Eleanor smiled softly, eyes half closed, as the gentle presence of Thomas beside her became the new rhythm of her nights. The candle burned steadily beside the window, shadows stretching softly across the walls. Eleanor sat with Thomas now, their hands entwined, smiles quiet but full of warmth. "You know," Thomas whispered, a playful glint in his eye, "I thought the city would forget me before you did." Eleanor laughed softly, the sound blending with the flicker of the candlelight. "Oh, please," she said, "I could never forget someone who keeps leaving letters everywhere I try to clean." Thomas chuckled, a soft, comfortable sound. "Well," he said, "maybe I was just testing your patience. You passed?" And just like that, a tiny moment of lightness filled the room, a reminder that even in long waiting and quiet nights, joy and laughter could still exist. They sipped from warm cups of tea, letting the warmth settle through their hands and hearts. Outside, the city continued its quiet rhythm, but inside the chamber, time seemed to slow completely. Eleanor leaned back, glancing at the letters still neatly stacked on the shelf. She smiled softly. "All these letters," she murmured, "and yet, somehow, we still managed to find each other." Thomas kissed her forehead lightly. Sometimes the waiting makes the reunion all the sweeter. The two of them sat together, speaking little, letting the quiet envelop them. A gentle breeze moved the curtains, and the candle flickered once, twice, then settled. The night had finally found its peace. Eleanor thought about all the nights she had waited alone, how each quiet second had led her here. And now, with Thomas beside her, she realized patience was not empty. It was full of hope, trust, and love that never left. "You know," Eleanor said softly, "next time maybe you should write a shorter letter, or maybe just show up on time." Thomas grinned, leaning closer. "Or maybe I'll just let you keep waiting a little longer. Keeps life interesting, doesn't it?" They laughed softly together, the sound blending with the night. And in that gentle shared laughter, the story of waiting, longing, and quiet love finally found its calm resolution. The candle burned steadily. Thomas held her hand, and Eleanor allowed herself to close her eyes, feeling the gentle rhythm of the night, the comfort of presence, and the quiet magic of patience fulfilled. And somewhere, beyond the stone streets and quiet city, the night carried on, but inside that small chamber, love had arrived, complete, patient, and serene.